Let's talk.
Ask humans to do things that we think they should be able to do, but they're taller or they're shorter or they're bigger or smaller or have a long old broken ankle that they don't even remember, and we're like, why aren't they doing it the way I told them? So that's interesting. Okay.
And it's like you can't try harder because that's not going to help. And so almost when you're doing this gives you a great platform for observations, like you say, the small details of, do we have the muscular development system, the like muscular strength to be able to do some of the things we're asking the learner to do. And it may just seem like the cat sitting, but when you sit and you lift a paw up, it shifts your body in a completely different direction. So I heard a word there that I think we should talk about.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about.
Let's talk.
I'd like to talk about observations. So I think it was you that mentioned observations, or I did, I can't remember. But observations, they're so crucial. It's like before we even pick up a clicker or we do any kind of training, per se, we can't really train if we can't observe. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I've seen your observation starts before the learner ever arrives. Right? So you observe, I don't know, you may not even know anymore. There's so many things, like you're ticking off a million boxes: light, sound, flooring, weather, temperature. So you're kind of doing this real fast wash. If we slowed you down and forced you to say, what are you thinking about? What would it be?
Okay.
Even before the learner comes in.
So example being, let's take the last week where I do training sessions with Penny and Prince Harry. And so I wake up, and pretty much that's the first thing I do is do a training session. So I wake up.
Because they're outside your door, like knocking practically.
They're like, let's do some stuff. So I wake up, and if they're not outside the door, I go downstairs. And as I'm walking downstairs, I'm just looking around and what kind of noises are going on.
Can I stop you?
Yes.
Do you ever say, how do I feel? Do I feel like doing this? Am I, do I even want to right now?
That's an excellent question. Yes. So if I wake up and going, I don't feel like training, or I don't feel like doing this, I give my permission to say that's okay.
Not today. Not
today. Or later.
Yeah.
So, and I know because you feed some of Penny's breakfast and Harry's breakfast first, and then I have a ration of their food that I use for the rest of the morning, and then they have their afternoon feed. And so what I do is, the days I haven't felt like training, I basically come downstairs and I'll take her food and just put it into a bowl or put it into a toy so that she can get her food, and I will do training later or the next day. But yeah, I think that's a fantastic question.
Yeah, so there's, should I, or do I even want to train right now? Yeah. Sometimes we have to push past that because we have to for some reason for our animals. But there are times that maybe we just shouldn't.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's completely okay not to feel bad about it. To go, no, I did something that was fantastic. Rather than thinking I failed, why didn't I do a training session today? I think of it as, I succeeded. The fact I was able to say, not today, means my animal doesn't have to suffer my... however I'm feeling in that moment, because my timing might be off, or I might be less patient, or whatever it is, that because I don't feel like training, I force myself to do it. I think that's such a great point you made.
Yeah, good. It's wonderful. I'm wonderful, yes.
You are wonderful, Theresa. You are. You are very wonderful.
Okay, so you have decided, yes indeed, I'm walking down the stairs, I'm excited about training, I'm going to get their food.
And so either I've got a goal from the previous day I want to work on, or I haven't decided yet. I might just go, let's sit down and just pick up an object and see what develops. And so as I'm walking down the stairs, I'm thinking noises. Is a blender on? Or how many people at home? Are you outside riding a tractor? If you are, and Penny wants to be there, and as opposed to be here, she may work for the food, but there's too many competing reinforcers. And so I might go, actually, this is not the best time to train for that situation.
At any point, would you say, I'm going to train anyway, but maybe I'll shorten the time of the training or the criteria that I was planning on asking for?
Yep, so I could go, I'd like to work on, Teresa's going to be riding a tractor sometimes, and when you're riding a tractor, I'd like Penny to be able to engage. So what's my training plan there going to be? Maybe I'm going to do just 2 minutes, or 30 seconds of quick session, and that session could look like, because training is training, it happens 24 hours a day when we're interacting with animals. It doesn't have to be I've sat down on the floor, I've got my clicker out, I've got a bowl of food out, I've given her 10 treats and said, okay, now go outside.
Yeah.
And that's it. But that's a training session.
Well, and you've even done a training session. Maybe we need to relabel training sessions or unlabel training sessions. But one day you said, oh yeah, I worked on giving her medicine.
Yeah.
Because I was outside, and for whatever reason you weren't training, but you turned giving medicine and changing the way you give medicine into a training session.
Exactly.
So check box for you.
There we go. And so any of that, and I think really give yourself permission to go, it's okay not to do that, or just everything we're doing is training. Me coming down the stairs and asking the dog or a cat to stay at the top of the stairs or walk next to me calmly so no one gets tripped over is training. And that's, by the time I got down the stairs, done. We move on to having breakfast or something else. Yeah. And so I'll be considering those factors, noises, sounds, and then as I'm walking down and the animals greet you, I'm looking at, is the greeting normal today? Is it what's compared to baseline, what is the greeting like? It's less enthusiastic today. If it's less enthusiastic, why is that so? Is that going to impact on the learning, the training session? What do I need adjustments need to make? And then I'll be watching their body movement. So
I'm going to take you, since we're delving deep, I'm going to take you back even more. So you said, if it is different, why is it different? Go a little bit deeper, and you may have to even stop and think, because you go through probably 100 checklists without even thinking of them anymore.
So why is it different? I would run through what's happening that I can see. So
everything I can see. Give me a couple of those that you.
So it could be people that are there. It could be people that are not there, that are typically there. It could be furniture out of place. It could be something on the dog themselves, they're limping. And then I would go, can I smell something different? So they might not be able to smell anything, or might be able to smell breakfast being cooked, a bacon or something. Especially
yummy breakfast that they're interested in and don't want to leave the room.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
I will listen. I will go, what can I hear or see with my ears? And okay, I can't hear anything. Is that abnormal? Because normally I can hear something and today I can't. So why is it more silent? Or is it I can hear something that I couldn't hear? I could hear something that I haven't heard previously. And this doesn't mean that's the reason why the animal's behaving differently. This could be a possible factor. So I would experiment by going and changing that sound off or putting it back on and seeing if that changes what the animal does.
Yeah. So you're just putting all your puzzle pieces together.
Exactly.
I think it's important to, for those new to training or wanting to get into training, that not to go, well, I am not going to go through all of those things every time. I don't have time for that. But you may do that in a period of 4 or 5 seconds.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So to give yourself reinforcement, we talked about this last time, right? How do we reinforce ourselves for building these new skills?
Yep.
Just say today, let me do the visual. Right? Until that becomes 1 second I can do it in. Right. And then maybe the next time you try doing it with the audible and the visual. And so all of these things no longer become overwhelming. I can't believe they do all these things. It's just, I just want to train my dog or my horse or my child. Let's just practice them one-on-one.
Exactly.
In little bits.
Yeah. Just have a checklist. I'm going to practice seeing with my eyes, practicing with my ears, practicing with my nose. Touch. And so it could be touching the learner. Do they feel different? It could be just the environment itself. Today it's always sticky on the floor. Or as I walk, I'm sensing, underneath my feet it's very cold. Has the central heating been off? And normally it's on. Yeah. And so I want to be able to. I know, Fly wants to join in our conversation.
Live on the farm, sorry.
So I want to be able to use all my senses and just look around.
So you go through all those, and then you see the learner, and you do what we talked about in the last session, which is the touch and the smell and the eyes and baseline from yesterday or from earlier on their body.
Look at the body, and then if everything is seeming okay, I'm seeing normal behaviour or I'm seeing abnormal behaviour, then I'll decide if I see an abnormal behaviour, is that abnormal behaviour that I'm willing to go, it could be a one-off. I might just go, I have noticed this, I'm going to continue as normal, see what happens.
I've seen you do that several times. Notice that. Okay.
Because I don't honestly know what it means.
Right.
And to figure it out may just be a one-off thing that I'm not going to know. Right. And I could have just spent 30 minutes trying to find it and I don't find anything. Or it could be, so just looking at, is it going to do any harm if I carry on my training session? No. If it's not and it's safe, safety is always really important. So that one of the top things is it safe? If it's safe, I'm going to start doing my training session. I've always got the option to cut it short. to stop the session or to try something different if it doesn't work.
Yeah, if we stopped for every nuance that was different or something, we would never train.
Exactly.
Which we get into sometimes, right? I'm tired, I shouldn't train. He looks tired, he shouldn't train. There's everybody in the house is up, I shouldn't train. Pretty soon there becomes never a time.
Exactly.
Which is why I like this video that we've been watching is the place was just living room because there was really no other options. I think we may even see pennies on the couch. Yeah. People are walking through. Blender comes on. Doors open. So you've taken that all in consideration and said, I can still do something. I can still play something here. Okay.
And if I know, again, we talked about this before, is are we looking for the outcome, the end goal, or are we looking for the journey and that journey to be developed or teaching the learner how to take that journey? And in the beginning, for me, if that journey is important, okay, we're going to start downstairs today. Blender's on, TV's on, someone's going to walk by. That's completely, for me, I accept that first and foremost if I'm going to train in that situation. And then when I accept it, it's not that, that person's walking by, I have to stop. Because that's really non-acceptance. It's like then you're saying, I accept it, I'm going to train, but then you keep changing your body language, and that's different information to the animal.
Yeah.
So if I say, I'm happy for Theresa to be on the phone while I'm training, then I don't keep going, she's too loud. I've accepted, like...
That never happened.
No, never. And so I go, I accept it. And then if something changes, say I'm training and you walk in and you walk past and the cat jumps off and follows you, I go, perfect. Because everything that's going to happen here, how can I adjust what I'm asking for or what I'm doing to just set this up so that I can teach the learner when people walk by, come back to training soon. Or you can go with Theresa if you want for a second, but there's another option, come back to training. Or I see you coming. As I see you coming, I make it more difficult for the cat to leave and make it more likely they want to stay where they are by paying them where they are or paying them faster where they are. So soon you walk by and the cat goes, yeah, whatever, I'm going to carry on in the session for a second. So, yeah.
So, I think that's really important that... Because especially with sensitive animals like Penny, she's super sensitive to my moods, which never vary. No. But so that's really meaningful to me. Is if you're going to train, be accepting of what's coming in to keep my emotional what she sees from me stable as possible, right? Yeah. And then if I need to train her to accept my moods, I can do that slowly. Yeah. But at this point, she is very sensitive and doesn't want loud, and she doesn't want you to be upset. And so if I got upset because I'm trying to train here, then that's not going to be good for my learner.
No, and this is going to actually interrupt that learning flow, and also learning to be like, wait, we're in a conversation, now suddenly you're having a conversation with someone else, and so it just becomes more difficult. So almost, we have three options. I think this is an Eckhart Tolle thing, is you can leave the conversation or leave the situation, you can change the situation, or you can accept the situation. And so, for example, it might be, I see this situation, there's lots of people around, I'm going to choose to leave it. So I'm not going to do a training session, I'm going to change the situation. So I'm going to move somewhere else, I'm going to close the door, I'm going to ask someone to could I ask you just to hold back on the blender, and I'm going to just modify that situation slightly. Or I accept the situation. I think acceptance is really interesting because a lot of times we accept, but we don't accept. So I hear myself going something like, I've accepted, but then 2 days later, when I'm sitting down with my friends, what I hear me talk about is that moment, that going, and then this happened, and truly there wasn't, if it was acceptance, I would have accepted it, part moved on, and it would have been just like history. There's nothing to talk about because I accepted it. But how many times do we go, I accept it, but I just want to tell you about this. And I think it's relevant to these training sessions as well, but I think true acceptance is going, and we don't have to pretend to accept if we don't want to accept. That's completely, you say, I'm choosing to leave, and I'm going to bitch about it or whatever, that's completely fine. But if I'm going to accept it, have true acceptance of going, I can't accept this. That's fine, don't accept it. You want to accept, you go, I can't, I'm going to modify, I'm going to leave. But if you're going to accept, truly accept and go, that was it, I accepted it, that's fine.
Now what?
Now we just move on. And I think for training that's really important as well.
So, from the human perspective, what I would want you to help me with, and both even you have, is I don't accept this. Yeah. I can't keep it, or I can say I'm accepting it, but I know I can already feel the chemicals surging through my body. Now what? How do I get out of this in a way that's good for this training session? Because I don't want to go, all right, we're done, I can't do anymore, go on, Penny.
Yeah.
I don't do that. But there's probably a better way than, okay, we're done.
Exactly.
And you had taught about. Do you want to? So I'm just going to give treats all over the place. I'm not making a big deal. I'm like, oh, here we are. Oh, and here's more treats. And then I gently get up and move away without some sharp, I'm done now.
Exactly. And when I'm working with humans, I often think, how can I arrange the environment to make that more successful for the human too? Because our lives happen, and we can't say, you have to leave everything alone when you come to a training session because you've got kids, you've got family, you might have a divorce, you might have work, you might have things happening.
There's always going to be
exactly.
something.
And so I think be realistic. So one of the things I do with clients and myself could be I'm going to pre-teach myself a strategy if I need to finish. If I'm upset at any point, I go, I'm not liking this, and rather than to make sure I don't take it out on the animal, not like in a bad way, but I just don't go finish and then walk away. Or even just feeding a treat. I could go treat, or throw a treat and then just walk away. But what I do is go, okay, what kind of things make me laugh? Or what kind of things? For me, I have a frame at home which I've taken lots of different sayings, like positive sayings, and what I'll do if I feel like I need to finish, I'll walk over and I'll go, say a saying, feed a treat, say a saying, feed a treat. And what that does for me is go, things like, I know one of them is, if you don't like where you are, move, you're not a tree. And it just makes me laugh, and when I read that to myself, I laugh. I was like, if I don't like where you are, move, you're not a tree. And that makes me laugh. I go, every time I'm saying that, I'm feeding the dog. So by the time I fed the dog's happy, but I've changed the whole way of being and feeling, so I'm ready to move on with my next thing, and actually I've got myself out that right, if that makes sense.
You may even continue training now.
Exactly. The other thing I've done with clients is we've got jokes, so we've taken 2 or 3 jokes, and we put like a little disc on the floor with the joke written on it, laminated it, and it's got a smiley face or whatever, and I say to them, if ever time you feel like you're having a bad session and you want to finish, we go to the joke. So you walk over to the laminated sheet of paper that's on the floor, that's got a smiley face on it, you read the joke, and it could be something silly, like, what kind of bees produce milk? And then you just basically feed at the joke.
At the joke that's on the floor.
On the floor. Or you could have 3 jokes in the room that you just stuck up, you just walk over, you feed at the joke, and you do that 3 times before you finish your session.
I so love that. Again, I'm always thinking from the frame of the human, not always, but a lot. And so if you can teach me those skills as much as you're teaching the dog the skills, then when you leave, I have those skills as well. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that a lot. That's good.
And then so going round again to we're talking about observations. And it was really interesting. You asked me, how do I observe when I go into a training session? The other question that then comes up, and it's something we talked about off camera, was the other day we were talking about how can we teach observations to either young trainers, I don't mean young in age, but upcoming trainers, or people who haven't practiced observing. And I was thinking, as we started talking about observations, shall we mention a few of the different ways that we would do it so that it may be useful to people watching and they can practice using some of those strategies. So do you want to kick off with any kind of things that you might do, or shall I go?
No, go ahead.
So one of the things I was thinking is like, that's a good question. And I thought, it's we need to be able to go, what are we observing? We will need to be able to label those observations potentially, so we can communicate about them or write them down or pass on information about those. But that's a different thing to what to observe. So when I observe, what am I looking for? How do I label those observations? How do I talk about those observations? So I'm going to train all of those components differently.
For example,
the first one, what am I observing? I could teach someone to observe. If I want to teach them to observe behaviour in terms of how fast does the behaviour happen? How often does it happen? Like things we call latency, all of those kinds of things. I would basically teach them, okay, let's watch YouTube videos, let's watch our dog, and what we're looking for is from the moment someone gives a signal, how long before the animal starts to respond. We call that latency. And so I would just teach them to watch 5 videos. This week the homework is watch 6 videos, and from the moment someone gives the dog a signal, or someone walks into a room or the telephone rings, before how many seconds does the learner start to respond? And I want you to count those. And when you count those, write them down. And then I would say we call these latency. Another example might be outside of the dimensions of things they're looking for, would be, where do you look on a body? So if we want to look at behaviour in terms of the movement, I might say this week I want you to let's start with nose to tail. So I want you to start with the nose for this week, I'd like you to just watch your dog's nose. 5 minutes a day, sit down and write down, how does the dog's nose move? It wrinkles, it moves left, it moves right, it does this, it does that. Watch 8 different dogs and just write down anything you see the nose doing.
Yeah.
Or we could sit down and go, here's a list, an ethogram of different nose movements. Now go and see what you can observe. So they've already got
a bingo game.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's your bingo game. Find all 5 of these. Left, right, up, down, wrinkle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
And we work our way each week to a different body part until eventually we've done the whole animal. And then we just focus on head. Now head equals nose, ears, eyes, furrow, chin. And then legs equal top, bottom, all 4 legs. But we've taught them how to do legs individually. And then we look at back, then we look at tail, and then we look at whole animal. By the time the person's practiced each of those skills, they become so fluent, they can describe, they can see, they can actually learn to, this is what I look for in this kind of animal. And then, like I say, separately we teach them to look for rates, latency, how much behaviour is occurring, how often, and as a different skill, then how to talk about them. So that's how I would suggest we start approaching it, is break it down into those nuggets.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're looking at, and that's when you come in with labels. Then when someone says describe, they say happy or tired or depressed, and that's when we get those labels, when we haven't been able to identify those individual parts. So
where would you, do you have any other ideas or anything you'd add to, like if you had to teach a learner, if you're going into an observation and you want to teach to start observing, what kind of things would you think about or do?
One thing that we've done is watch videos or watch TV, or simply we've had parents walk around behind children and say it, not out loud. Sorry, that was Penny. She's talking to us. I'm so tired. And just say, because what we find is they'll say big things like sitting, but they'll miss little things like breathing, blinking. And one time we had people working with a child with very severe autism, and who would become very upset. And by upset, I mean would cry and scream and scream. And she said, they're not doing anything but screaming, so I can't find a behavior to mark and reinforce. And Martha Gabler has in her book beautifully said that then she noticed if she broke everything down, there was screaming and then there was a breath, inhale, so that the scream could happen again or the cry could happen again. So she literally caught, because she could break it down and identify and define a breath in. And people are like, but that doesn't really count. Yeah, it really doesn't count. Yeah. So you can start to slice them that thin. And in gymnastics and a handstand, sometimes we would say, if they're up in a handstand to balance, you would just press the pads of your middle finger. That's all the balance you really needed. So you learn to look for just muscle contractions sometimes.
Wow.
You don't have to start there. But I think it's a good thing to say from nose to tail and then break those up into pieces. Yeah.
And what I really like about your example is, from when you mentioned the breath bit, often when we look at teaching, look for behaviours, we start with the negatives in terms of the problem type, that's a problem often, like recognise a growl or the snarl or the jumping up, and we talk about the things that the person already has a problem with, essentially.
You want them to stop.
Exactly, that you want them to stop. Whereas because a lot of times people say, and you just said this, is all he does is cry, but actually we haven't learned to see what else is going on, so we can't see that, so all we do see is crying. But if we suddenly teach all these other things as well, suddenly the human, without us going, do you see this stuff? They're like, oh, I see this. He doesn't just cry. He does this, and 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 he cries. So suddenly they've already got a whole load of options, rather than going, no, you're not seeing it. We just teach them to see, focus on teaching the positive observations as well as the things that might be problem behaviours. And that can make a massive difference. I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd like to stop, please, because I'd like to go outside now.
What's your pen? Okay.
So I think that was a really interesting discussion and observations. So if to summarise that, as in, let's practice observing.
So one thing you can do is have a dice. I think I spoke of that
before.
Yes.
I think we did it privately in the conversation.
So at the dollar store, or whatever store you have, they have a big foam dice and that has whiteboard material on each side, so you can write something down and erase it. So for one of the expos, I put nose on one side, ears on the other, tail, whatever you want to put, and then you'll have your client or your learner roll it, and then whatever comes up, say it's ears, then watch the video, and they're watching for ears. So it's a little more game on that.
Yeah.
So that they get to roll and decide which thing they're going to look at.
I like that. Because it keeps it fun as well, and it's engaging rather than going, oh, not another lesson.
Please.
So, yeah. Cool. Well, there's something for you to work on, and we'll see you at our next chat time.
Yeah, we'll talk more.
Perfect.